Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Almost Dropouts podcast, where we talk about tech, education, engineering, university, and everything in between. I have a special guest today, Prashant Bagga. He's a former product manager at Microsoft and is currently in nanotechnology at the University of Waterloo. But I'll let Prashant introduce himself. Prashant?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Devik. I love that you pronounced my last name correctly. It's Bagga. Thank you. All right. So I'm Prashant. As Devik said, I'm studying nanotechnology. In the past, I did an 8 month internship at Microsoft as a product manager. That got me really, really interested in product, in business, and strategy. And that's what I'm pursuing right now. I'm trying to grow my expertise. I'm trying to grow myself in that particular domain.
Yeah, and yeah. So when I made this podcast, one of the things I wanted to do with it is talk to people about talk to students specifically about tech and the different tech events, different tech products and stuff coming out. And when I thought about who to bring on for the next podcast, I thought, why not Prashant? Because I think out of everybody I know, you're one of the only people I know who has that passion for tech as much as I think I do as well. So I thought it'd be pretty interesting if we could talk about some developments in the tech industry and different
Definitely.
thoughts we had about on it. So cool. So yeah, I think one really interesting thing let's just get into it. So one interesting thing that happened recently was the Google event where they announced the Pixel 4. So
Right.
I was wondering, did you see the event and what were your thoughts about it?
I definitely saw the event because I actually love New York City. Like I went to New York and New York had a big poster saying, "Hey Google, save the date because Google Pixel is coming." And that's where like I was like, "Wow, this looks good. I am a Pixel user and I want to know how they are improving." So definitely amazing event. And something that I've been thinking a lot about is what's the need of that boxy look of camera because
Yeah.
Apple was trying to show that, Google was trying to show that. So yeah, it was really interesting to see how they have tried to come up with this design.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean specifically talking about the design. So I know Apple, so it's for the triple lens camera system, so they could house that. But it was pretty interesting because I think the Huawei P30 they also have a triple lens camera system, but what they do is they have almost a line at the back of the phone. So that way, it's almost like the iPhone X design is right now, except with an additional, with a bigger semicircle,
Right.
with just an additional camera at the bottom. So it was pretty interesting to see that with the iPhone 12 they decided to go the box route, and with the Pixel 4 they decided to pretty much copy that design for their next Pixel. And it just makes me wonder. I just wonder, is there actually tech inside that design that requires that box shape? Or is
Yeah,
that just a design that they finalized?
that's true. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I really think that the main concept behind triple lens is the zooming experience that I am a pixel user and I can click really good pictures with really short focal lengths. And if I want to really magnify it, so I can see the difference. So with the new Pixel 4, what they are trying to do is that when you really zoom in, how to make sure the image is still sharp. So
yeah,
that was the really basic need about getting that third lens. And that is why we have this boxy design now.
yeah, no, and I think so. As a Pixel 3 user, I know for me, like I'm an iPhone user, just to give some context.
Right.
Um, when I when I saw the Pixel, I love the Pixel 3 though. I love what they've done with the AI. I mean, of course, Google's the best at AI and software integration. So the way they use a single camera in order to and still had the best photos in the game in the smartphone game was really amazing with the Pixel 3. But of course, the AI could only go so far because you can't take ultra wide photos with one single camera. And I think that's one of the things that the triple lens setup really offers. So it was interesting to me though uh, that Google, like this event, they focused a lot, like Google and Apple, both of them focused so much on the camera, and I think that's the shift we see in smartphones right now, where uh, because the basic smartphone hardware isn't changing as much every year, because the battery, until we get past lithium ion batteries, there's not going to be much advancement in that field. And um, from a processor standpoint of view, we've reached a point that okay, like there is some advancement, but for almost anybody, the processors we've had for the last 2-3 years are more than enough for whatever we do on our phones.
Right.
And so it's interesting that the way Google and iPhone are approaching now for the future of the smartphone and how they're selling it is based on their camera.
Yeah.
And that's what the Pixel event was really focused on, especially with, I think the coolest thing for me was the astrophotography, where did you see that in the event where
That's true. Pretty cool.
yeah, so in the nighttime, it's using AI and the different lenses on the back of the camera, like stars and stuff show up a lot better in the photos. So when you have very low light photography, it can capture those different bright points in the sky a lot easier.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. And specifically like talking about Apple now, with the iPhone 11 versus 11 Pro, going back to that camera argument, I think that's honestly what it comes down to, right? Like with the iPhone 11 Pro, you're getting that extra lens, you're getting an OLED display, but other than that, it doesn't really offer much more than the iPhone 12 Pro, iPhone 11 Pro. Whoops.
Right.
iPhone 11 Pro. So you're not getting more than like compared to the iPhone 11, those are the biggest two differences. And I think it's really interesting to me that the way Apple's approaching the next generation of their iPhones is giving pro users or people who want the best of the best the iPhone 11 Pro option, but giving most other people the iPhone 11, because I think for almost 90% of the population, the iPhone 11 is more than enough.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. This is what I believe, that smartphone as a commodity has reached that point which is really good enough for people. So once everybody starts like maybe buying the second-hand iPhones, maybe starting to buy the brand new iPhone, we have reached a point where we can cater to their needs without any further innovation. So I'm not saying that we don't need any more innovation. I'm just saying that we have reached a point where people are satisfied with their smartphones now, right? And now where these companies are trying to innovate is cameras. Why? Because now they want to make their camera competitive to the actual actual professional photographer's camera, right? Like it's pretty crazy that I think last week I went to this event, an Indian event, and I saw this old uncle carrying this handy cam and going around and shooting videos. And looking at him, I had nostalgia. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that camera for a long time. Why? Because smartphones have disrupted that industry. So that's the game, right? Like these guys have really made smartphone capable enough to cater all the basic needs. And now the only place to innovate really well is making your camera competitive to a professional photographer. It's like actually replace it.
Hello? Sorry.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the place?
Yep. So I was just saying that they are basically replacing the need of a professional camera, right?
Yeah. No, that's honestly like I had some friends visit New York because I'm currently there for an internship or here for an internship, and they brought DSLRs, but there was actually a legitimate argument that should I take the DSLR out and take the time of actually taking that photo with the DSLR, or should I just take on my phone and take a picture? And I know even as soon as 2 or 4 years ago, that wasn't a question, right? But now, yeah, of course the DSLR takes better photos, no doubt, but their smartphone's quality is so good to the point that you actually have to think about, is it worth that quality jump? Because you're on especially on Instagram and Snapchat with compression, you're only going to be able to see that a certain amount of detail regardless.
Very
So if you're taking it with the DSLR, that's like that photo is really just really for photographer. Like a DSLR nowadays is really only for people who love photography.
true.
It's become very passion, and even people who like photography, a smartphone. A lot of them are now switching just to smartphones because it's not worth the hassle of carrying a DSLR now.
So true. So true. Like the day I got my Pixel phone, I feel like a photographer now because the result I get, the clarity, the color, the HDR, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think like I have the iPhone 10s, and one of the reasons I got it is because I love portrait mode. So, and at the time, like I thought that was the best portrait mode out there. Of course, I nowadays, of course, the Pixel I think is very comparable, if not better, than the iPhone's portrait mode. But regardless, like it blew my mind when I started taking these photos, how good they look. Because specifically with portrait mode, that was something that only a DSLR could offer.
Right.
And a lot of the new features, what they're doing in smartphones is it's taking features only DSLRs can offer and using AI and software, of course, with some hardware as well, with some extra lenses and stuff, to give you a somewhat comparable result. And I think that's really cool to see. Yeah,
Right. I remember Nokia releasing a phone where the software, even the UI of the entire camera app feels as if you are using a DSLR. It has those gradings, it has those those minute details over there. So it's very
hmm
interesting that how these guys are completely trying to take on that market. Yeah,
yeah. And I even like so when I look at the iPhone 11 versus 11 Pro, if you just look at the cameras itself, um, honestly, even they are pretty comparable. Like that extra lens for most people, for most shots, will give you a very comparable result. So I think there's definitely some more room for improvement where the Pro will give you a significantly better camera result than the standard iPhone 11. Like I think in the future, with the iPhone 12 and 13, whatever, in the future, that's going to become a bigger player. But right now, it's the extra lens, of course, does make a difference, but not as much as it's going to make in the future.
right. Definitely.
And I think talking about Apple and Google actually, it's really interesting how they started transitioning to services. Um, with Apple, with Apple TV Plus. Um, now, of course, iCloud and stuff was there beforehand, but they're really moving to a service-based company so that they can keep those people in the ecosystem. And uh, Google is also doing Stadia and Google Stadia and stuff, so they're leveraging their cloud platform to offer streaming gaming service. So it's pretty interesting to see how the companies are changing their strategies, especially specifically Apple, because historically they've been a more hardware-based, company, which like they sell a product. They don't necessarily sell services. They sell an iPhone, a Mac, an iPad, whatever. But they're shifting their strategy now, and
Right.
that's. I know recently saw an article that you made about Apple TV Plus, so I was hoping you could talk about that a little bit and we can have a discussion on it.
Yeah, definitely. Like the entire Apple's pivot is very unique. It's very new for this generation because now this is the company that was selling you iPhone is now making TV shows, which
Yeah.
doesn't represent the brand that you relate to Apple's logo, right? So what is now happening over here? Like Apple realized that, hey, 60%, more than 60% of our revenue comes from this one product line called iPhone. And what
Yeah.
is happening to iPhone? iPhone sales are kind of declining. The reason why I say kind of declining is because number one, all the US China trade war going on. Because of that, Apple is facing a lot of criticism that, hey, what, like from the president, that, hey, why are you manufacturing phones in China? Bring
Yeah.
all those jobs back over here in US. That's number one. Number two is simply because, as I mentioned earlier, that this entire smartphone market is saturated now. Now we have already catered to the basic needs that people really need. There is
Yeah.
no more innovation that is going to get people to be like, wow, I'm going to spend $2,000 to buy this new thing. So That's where we have reached. And the third aspect to it is simply because iPhone as a product is now so successful that like people don't really people aren't thinking of upgrading every year. People aren't, again, if they want to upgrade, they are looking at the second hand market, which is
Yeah.
again booming. Second hand market is booming right now. Facebook Marketplace, eBay, wherever you go, you can buy iPhone at like 50% discount now. I've
Yeah.
bought my Pixel 3 XL for 50% discount. It's a $1,300 phone. I bought it for $650 through Facebook Marketplace. So you can imagine what is going on over here. All these smartphones have now become a commodity. So Apple has realized that. And what they have to do now is find new revenue streams. Because
Hmm.
if I mentioned in my article, I mentioned the BCG matrix. What is BCG matrix? It basically puts your products in a graph based on the market growth and based on, okay, I need to remember what was the exact word. It's based on market growth and it's based on the revenue growth, I think. So what happens over here? iPhone was called a star. Why? Because smartphone market was booming
Yeah.
and as well as iPhone was booming. So iPhone was a star. But now what has happened is smartphone market is like stagnant. So
Hmm.
it has become a cash cow now. It has become a cash cow for them. And whenever you have a product that has become a cash cow, simply means that just give it 3 to 4 more years and it will start declining. And that entire growth is going to decline now. And Apple has reached that. Apple has reached that point with iPhone, and now it
Yeah.
has to like really push forward for these services. And it's really cool how they always knew that they have to focus on vertical integration. Steve Jobs had this thing about vertical integration where he has to manage. He really wants to make sure that people are having a beautiful experience being in the Apple ecosystem. And that
Yeah.
has trickled down to every single product Apple has come up with. So if you look at Apple HomePod, Apple MacBook, we look at AirPods, everything it has become such a seamless experience for people that they don't want to come out of it. So how does
Yeah.
Apple leverage? How does Apple capitalize on that? Bring entertainment, bring banking, bring gaming, and just bring on every single product that a human can possibly use in his daily life. That Apple is doing.
Hello? Sorry, you're cutting out again.
Hello?
Yeah. Okay, you're back. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. So it's pretty interesting that you know, like yeah. So like the iPhone growth is stagnating, and I think they realize that. Especially like they're so I know like a couple of years ago it started stagnating in the US, but they still had China and India to rely on. But uh, given their price point, they weren't having as much success as they wanted to. And now, of course, with the iPhone 11, they brought down that price point to try addressing those markets more. But I think that, like you said, what they started realizing is that they can't just rely on this cash cow, and
Right.
they have to start diversifying themselves. So yeah, with Apple TV Plus and Apple Card and Apple Arcade, they're just trying to consolidate every almost everything you do online digitally, or any service you use online digitally for the most part through Apple.
Right.
And I mean, it started early. Like this isn't the first time it started. It started earlier as well. Like even with something as simple as Apple Pay,
Right.
right? Um, Not having to being able to pay through your iPhone or your Mac or your iPad, uh, with that itself already started that process. And
Right.
with the Apple Card, now they're going even one more step above that, where your credit card doesn't even have to be an external vendor's credit card. It's a licensed credit card by Apple. Now, of course, it's Goldman Sachs, but it's Apple's own credit card, right? Um,
Definitely.
and so it's interesting how they're addressing that. And with Apple TV Plus, like every new iPad, Mac, or iPhone has Apple TV Plus for a year, and that's how they're trying to address the market, leveraging their ecosystem and the people using their products to get onto their services. Um,
Exactly. Exactly. This is where they're going to have a huge leverage against the existing competitors, even. Like we know, Netflix has a full pile of award winning shows over there, and they are constantly investing into their own Netflix originals. But still, Just imagine if Apple comes up with a subscription bundle saying that, all right, guys, for $50, your entire family gets Apple Arcade, gets Apple Music, gets Apple TV Plus, gets iCloud storage, gets an upgraded device every year. What are you gonna do about it? You're gonna be like, why not? Like, why not give us a month? And that's when you are gonna be like, hey, if I'm paying for Apple Music, why do I separately pay for Spotify? If I'm paying for
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus, why do I separately pay for Netflix? And that's when they get the same leverage, and that's where they came become the same story as Amazon Prime, which
Hmm.
became famous for just doing exactly that vertical integration. You got groceries, Whole Foods, you got shows, Amazon Prime Video, you got everything over there.
Yeah, and talking about the Netflix originals, like you brought up, the award-winning shows, Apple has the resources that they can invest. I think they're investing something like $16 billion or something on their own original line of TV shows. Um, and they have those industry connections and the resources to make some really good shows. It's gonna. I assume Apple TV Plus has been out for a week now, and I haven't seen the original shows, but I assume there are going to be a lot of growing pains with that. But it won't take them that long to figure it out, or won't. They'll figure it out with enough money thrown at the problem.
Definitely.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. And actually, talking about Steve Jobs a little bit in the past, one of the biggest thing Apple's always had is this fence. So, if you're not an Apple user, you can't iMessage somebody,
Right.
you can't FaceTime, iCloud sharing is a lot harder, stuff like that. And I think what's interesting though is with their shift to services, like with Apple TV Plus, it's actually available on Roku as well,
Right.
which that's a big shift because Apple TV is their product, a direct competitor. Like Apple TV, the actual hardware is a direct competitor to Roku.
Right.
So, in the past, at least under Steve Jobs and even under Tim Cook for most of his time, it's always been this walled fence that okay, if you want to use, like in this case, if you want to use Apple TV Plus, you have to have an Apple TV hardware, or else you can't, right? The same thing with like FaceTime and iMessage. But now it's shifting to this willingness to let more third parties into their fenced off ecosystem, and I wonder how that's going to change for the future. How that's going to change because now consumers can have options of what they want to get. Like if I want to watch Apple TV Plus shows,
Mhm.
if a Roku is cheaper than an Apple TV, what's the advantage of doing an Apple TV? Like, of course, there's a whole with your MacBook, you can, or MacBook or phone or iPad, you can do AirPlay and stuff to the Apple TV. I understand that, but if my only goal is to watch shows through Apple TV Plus, why would I get an Apple TV now?
Right. That is really true. Partnerships. This is something that Microsoft has been really focusing on right now. Like if you look at the shift from Steve Ballmer to Satya Nadella, this is a huge transition because as you can see the stock price itself, like it is just peaking, it is just spiking high. And then why is this happening? It's mostly happening because of the new direction that, hey, we are going to focus on building a platform to help other people be successful. We are not going to compete and cut throat, like destroy our competitors. And then what is happening over here is all these amazing partnerships. Like if we just simply look at the entire Office apps that were introduced on iPads for education, that was an amazing partnership because Microsoft and Apple are kind of really head to head in the education, into K to 12 education market. Over there,
Yeah.
students aspire, like kids aspire to have an iPad. But Microsoft wants to go in with Surface Go, with Surface Pro, with their products, with their productivity tools. And
Right.
what is happening over here is that Microsoft has realized that, hey, yeah, we know that there is a particular segment of market that really wants to go with Apple products. So what if we provide them the good productivity tools that they always like Excel, Word, PowerPoint? And that's how we have this Office apps on iPads, and it's growing really big now.
So yeah, no, for sure. And But I think one big thing historically between Apple and Microsoft is with Windows and Microsoft's previous operating systems, they've had partnerships in the industry because they license out that operating. Historically, they've licensed out Windows to different manufacturers, right?
Right.
But with Apple specifically, is they've always done their own software and hardware in-house for their own devices. And Microsoft, it's really interesting how you brought it up because Microsoft has that experience with partnerships a lot more. I know under Satya Nadella, it's gone to another level, but historically, Microsoft has that experience and they have those connections across the industry. While Apple is approaching it more from a, it's a more new concept to them of having partnerships with external vendors. So I wonder in the future how that's going to, change, how that's going to change the different trajectories of the company, and how if there's going to be many growing pains for Apple now becoming, friendly with external people or third parties.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think there it's a really hard balance though, because if you start licensing a lot of what makes people go, like I know for me, one of the reasons I love my iPhone is because of FaceTime, iMessage, and all these type of things. Now, Apple TV Plus is just the beginning that it's on Roku, but if iMessage ends up on Android somehow, I'm not saying now, but maybe 5-10 years in the future, where does the competitive advantage way for Apple in their products? Or like they're going to be losing that competitive advantage, right? Why should I choose an iPhone over an Android product? That's going to be an interesting question to ask.
Definitely. Over here, what I really believe is going to happen is that the reason Apple opened up some of the specific services products to other competitors is because I think they have this hypothesis that people aspire to use Apple products just because of the luxury, just because of the brand status, and just because of this entire Apple thing going on around the world that, hey, Apple people are cool, Apple people are rich, right?
Yeah.
So what is going to happen is that once they just think that, hey, once customers find that, hey, I really love Apple TV Plus, and they also find that if they have Apple TV, they're going to have more seamless experience, more better experience. They can connect a lot of other things. That's when they're going to upsell them Apple TV. It's just the same case with AirPods. I know one of my friend who actually owns an Android phone, but he bought AirPods because he's like,
That's
I
true.
love the design. And
Yeah.
once he bought AirPods, he could seamlessly, like he could really work, like he could really find himself loving that product. He saw himself, wow, I love this thing. I love the design. I love how like hands-free it is, everything. And then he found the other features that he's missing out on just because he owns an Android. Just the fact that as soon as he puts on his AirPods in his ears, it directly connects with his iPhone, and he don't have to like always go on to Bluetooth and turn it on, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And as soon as he switches between his laptops, if he has a MacBook Pro, it connects with that other device. So when he realized all these things, now he wants to buy the Apple product, and that is
Yeah.
upselling the users. I believe that's a great strategy.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I think, yeah, the Apple's brand recognition is unparalleled, and I mean that's the reason they've gotten so far as they have. It's not only their products and the engineering behind the products; it's also their marketing, and the way they branded themselves. And there's a reason. The moment you see the Apple logo, there's like a certain amount of like authenticity or like respect almost that people have for that brand.
Right.
And there's a certain amount of quality that you also associate with that brand. And they've established themselves pretty well in that regard. But yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Especially like with AirPods, it's funny because when they first came out, I remember they were being announced, and me included, I thought they looked really, weird and really stupid, to be honest.
Right.
But now I'm an AirPod owner, and that really speaks to them really setting the cultural social norms of like of headphones or of tech in general. and it really speaks to it really speaks to how well they know their products and how well they know how it's going to sell.
Right.
Um, because I know a lot of people were making fun of the AirPods when they first came out, and it's crazy that 2 or 3 years down the line, it's the hottest commodity that everybody wants.
Derek, I really want to know this, that what was the moment when you thought that, wow, now I really think I might buy this?
What, AirPods?
Yeah, for AirPods. Because you said earlier you also thought that it had a weird design.
Yeah, I think for most people it starts growing on them, and it just becomes a norm, right? Because you have the first adopters, the early adopters, and given how well it integrates with the Apple ecosystem, they start loving that product. Because yeah, it has great sound quality and stuff too. But I think the seamless integration, especially for the first generation AirPods, was the biggest draw to it.
Right.
And as they start loving that product because of the seamless integration, more iPhone users start loving it, or more Apple product owners start loving it, and they start adopting it, right? And just in general, because of that brand recognition I was talking about beforehand, people also trust that, okay, if this person likes it, it's going to fit my needs as well, and it starts growing like that. So I think for me personally, as it starts becoming more of a norm, you just start becoming more attuned to the design language, right? And it just becomes more. It's a norm then, right? And that's just human nature in general. As things start becoming more normalized and you become more used to it, you start enjoying it, or you start liking it as well.
Right.
Um, and I know for me, I own a lot of Apple products now because I love the ecosystem, and just seeing that integration between the ecosystem just made me want to get it even more. Um, and yeah, it's really interesting because there's definitely products that are better than there's definitely earphones that are better than this, like the Sony WH-1000X MN3. I think they're not their headphones, but their earbuds are
Okay.
definitely like a big competitor to the AirPods, and some argue has better sound quality. I had Jaybirds before my AirPods, and they had better sound quality and noise isolation, but their integration with the ecosystem, just for almost every Apple product, in general, like Mac, iPhone, everything included, is just so compelling to so many people that it just gravitates people towards their products.
Right.
And yeah, they're expanding on the ecosystem. That's the whole point of the Apple TV Plus and Apple Arcade and such. So more people uh, get on their stuff.
Right. I would love to know that would you buy a subscription bundle for $50 per month that would give you Apple Music, Apple Arcade, Apple TV Plus, and will give you the new iPhone when it launches every year?
Right. So, yeah, so I think it's interesting you asked that because those are all different things they currently offer, but as a non-bundled option. um, I like the Apple Upgrade program, and then Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade. Um, like you said, I think, yeah, it'd definitely be very compelling, especially. Sorry, are you saying $50 a month or $50 a year? A
$50
month, right?
a
A
month.
month, right? Yeah. I think it'd be hard for me to justify $50 per month uh, just because I don't game that much on Apple Arcade,
Right.
and or like I don't game much on games. Apple TV Plus still has a lot to show.
Right.
Uh, Apple Music, I still like what Spotify has done. Like I like Spotify's some of the stuff they have, like even organizing their playlist by the artist name.
Right.
That's something Apple Music doesn't have yet.
Okay.
But to add to that, if those things were addressed, which they
Right.
aren't big things to address, then yes, I think I would do it. And that's that's the ground that they're setting up. That for me, like those aren't big things for them to address, and especially with the resources they have, they can definitely address those.
Right. And
So
the big thing over here is just the fact that since you're paying $50 per month, whenever the new iPhone comes out, you get it for free as part of that contract.
yeah,
And they take your
yeah.
own phone. That would be really cool to see. I'm really waiting for that to come out and see how many people ditch Spotify and Netflix just because of that.
So but they do have the Apple Upgrade program in the US.
Right.
So like I think you pay. I don't know if it's monthly or if you pay it's a one-time thing. But if you subscribe, if you're in that program, then you pay. I think it's like a monthly payment, and then you pay one upfront thing. I think for the new iPhone. So they do have that already. But so I don't know. See, that's the interesting thing about it, though, is if that's the only thing you want, then there's no point in going for the bundle, right? But if it's only $5 more per month or $10 more per month, I don't know the prices off the top of my head. Then the Apple Upgrade program, then it's like I might as well do the bundle, right? And now you're hooked to all these different services that they have to offer, or they're hoping that you will be. Not necessarily hooked, but it's an interesting model for them to do.
Right. Definitely. It's going to be exciting to see how they kind of monopolize this entire ecosystem and dominate this market. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, subscription services are the way to go now, right?
Definitely.
Because it's more stable income every year. Because if you have a certain amount of subscribers, okay, you're going to get this much money from them. Well, with iPhone or their hardware or the products in general, right now, it can depend. It can change per year. It's hard to do. Of course, their forecasting and stuff is very up to date, and they have a pretty good, insight into how much they're going to sell. But it's still a lot more volatile compared to the number of subscribers.
Right.
Because if you have 50,000 subscribers, you're going to get at least that much money at the beginning of the month, unless some drop. But that's something you can see.
Yeah. I remember one video on. It was, I think, by Verge or Business Insider. It was basically saying that the concept of subscription model has become so successful that VCs now force their hardware startups to apply that, to kind of find a way around that the hardware startups can, create a subscription model for themselves. And that has that has come around with even more innovative ideas, because I remember there is this one startup that makes these kind of balls, robotic balls that you could code and that kids can actually code and try to play with it. And what these guys have done is with subscription to schools, by saying that, okay, a school would have to pay maybe $1,000 per month to get specific number of these robo balls for their kids. Like, we are going to maintain them, we are going to service them, something like that. And we are going to also give you new robo balls every year, something like that. So, they have come up with really creative ways of creating these models now and earning actual revenue.
Yeah, no, that's that's definitely really interesting. I think that's the interesting part about it. That's before it was like, okay, you buy the package and that's it. You don't get any more money. You buy the hardware, you buy the product, and the software comes included, pretty much. Now it's like the hardware is at a discounted price, and the software is where the money comes from because it's a subscription model, right? That's just how they're doing it now. I mean, it started I guess the oldest example of that is probably with cable TV. The cable box came included, but then you pay every month to them, and that somehow has now propagated all over the industry, which it's a concept that didn't seem like it was applicable in other services, but no, it's definitely everywhere now.
Right. Great to see that.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what Apple's future is. Coming to another competitor for Apple, or not? Well, coming to the home in general. Amazon and Google, their home products are really interesting, and they're sort of in a deadlock right now with one another, competing with one another. With with Amazon having Alexa and really, really going at being the all-encompassing, having all-encompassing hardware for your home, and with Google focusing with Google Assistant to make to work with third parties to make different hardware for your home. I think it's pretty interesting seeing those two.
Definitely. Amazon over here has the leverage of being the marketplace, the e-commerce giant it is, as well as the voice technology, Alexa, because Amazon has been able to sell so many Alexa in every single home that now people are gonna use it a lot. People are gonna, like what we say, they're gonna spend a lot of time with their Alexa now. So how does Amazon bring all this together? Amazon is gonna now what does the future of voice looks like? This is exactly the article I wrote about. And what the future of voice looks like. It's simple that you say, Alexa, call Uber, and Uber is at your doorstep. You say,
Yep.
Alexa, buy me maybe detergent, and Alexa buys the Amazon basic detergent, puts in your cart, and delivers to your place. Maybe within an hour, because in future we know Amazon is coming up with 1 hour delivery. So
So Prashant, I think it's really interesting that you brought. Actually, that's one of the things Alexa has right now,
okay,
uh, where you can say, "Alexa, buy me detergent," like exactly the same thing, and it will go on Amazon, and it will and it will actually buy you that detergent.
it will.
It's actually a feature they have right now.
As of now, they
Um,
will actually put in your shopping cart. I just tried it like the day before yesterday, I think.
okay,
So
okay.
as of now, when you say Alexa, buy me detergent, it will actually put in your shopping cart, but it will not actually deliver, like it will not process the
Oh, it
payment.
won't buy it too. Okay, okay, okay. But yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So this is
Yeah, I
something,
think.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So voice commerce, as we say it, is being really dominated by Amazon only right now. There is
Mm-hmm.
no other competitor. And if we think about Google, what is Google trying to do is Google knows that where Google comes into picture is whenever you need data, you need to work with data, you need really high processing power, you really need a lot of data to make really good decisions. That's how Pixel became the best camera. So
Mm-hmm.
what Google is trying to do is now pivot to devices with screens. The entire rebrand of Nest Home Hub. Initially it was called Google Home Hub, but now it's called Nest Home Hub. It's just to focus on this entire new brand that makes sure that okay, you are always connected to this screen where if you say that buy me detergent, it shows you all the options right over there and then you can
Yeah.
choose from because Google as of now doesn't have an e-commerce platform that you can leverage.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting in that way, the way they're approaching it, because Amazon's doing sort of an Apple type of approach where they want to do a first party, more of a first party type of thing. So I know, uh, like they were introduced. They had like an event a couple months ago, and they had crazy products like Amazon microwave, like Alexa microwave, uh, Amazon microwave, Amazon like like baking oven, stuff like that. They had a lot of crazy products like that, and it was all smart
Right.
products that they were trying to. And so they're trying to do more of a first party thing. While Google, I really like what they're doing from this point of view is that they know what they're good at. They know that their AI is still unmatched in the industry, um, and and Google Assistant. Yes, Alexa does have a lot of capabilities, but Google Assistant, at least from my perspective, and I think in general is just the it's still the premier voice assistant where it can do the most capabilities. Now it doesn't have the stuff Amazon does where you can buy stuff from Amazon, but at the same time the results it brings up I think are much more relevant and um, even like calling an Uber and stuff, it can do that. Google Assistant. So, and they're continually improving the AI so it could do more stuff. Like if you saw a couple months ago at Google I/O actually last year, they had that whole call with the barbershop.
Right.
Uh, it was completely with artificial intelligence,
Right.
uh, where it was completely AI, where the Google Assistant was setting up a barbershop appointment for you with the actual human being, which of course that has its own implications. But in terms of this conversation, Alexa's advanced, but I still believe Google still has that advantage of actual engineering over them or actual AI over them.
Right.
Um, so what Google is doing, which is interesting, is that they're focusing mainly on putting their assistant at the center of third party systems. So you use Google software in order to control third-party hardware, while Amazon's going more of the Apple route, where they're trying to have the software and the hardware. So they have their Alexa controlling everything of Amazon that Amazon's made, and of course, other products can be supported by Alexa, but they want to make competitive first-party options as well. while Google's not focusing on that.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, these guys are basically focusing on their strengths right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how the home market changes. I think definitely like I think definitely like right now smart homes are very appealing, but it's still sort of a luxury where people if it costs a lot more, they're not going to spend that money doing a smart home, like the smart light bulbs and stuff. So it's definitely more of a almost a fad at this point where people will do it if they have to upgrade the bulb, but they're not going to go out of their way to buy the smart electronics. It's only if they have to, if it's a same around the same price and they have to get it. But so I think one thing that'll need to happen for both of these companies is the cost of smart electronics has to come down, and that's going to happen over time. But I think that's really when this war is going to start escalating even more so.
Definitely, definitely. And it's just very interesting that you say this because I I recently interviewed for Ecobee and I was
Okay.
preparing, I was learning about all the smart home appliances, the competitors out there, and what's the strategy right now. And what you say is the exact thing that people don't want to buy smart lights, smart things just because it's fancy. They're going to buy it because it brings convenience to them, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the reason why Google bought Nest, and that's the reason why Nest's thermostat is the basic product. Why? Because thermostat is just another product that you put instead of your basic analog thermostat area, and now
Yeah.
it helps you save money. It helps you save energy cost. So
Hmm.
this is the very fundamental level at which Google Nest is built on. That we are not here just for fancy smart home appliances. We are over here to save you money, and that's where Google will build on from. So Nest is now going to have a thermostat, and then they will have Nest Home Hub. They will have Nest Home Mini, something like that, and that's where Google will keep on growing the pie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a valid way of doing it, right? It's just two different approaches. It's like back in the day with Windows and Mac, how they have their own approaches where Apple made the hardware as well, and Mac and Windows licensed out the hardware out to other manufacturers. Same way here, just on a smaller scope, of course. But I think, yeah, I think like you were saying, that convenience part, that's going to be a major factor, and I think right now that convenience, right now the price for that convenience is dispelling a large majority of consumers. Um, but when that price drops, then that convenience factor is going to be even more so relevant, and that's really when it's going to start taking off. And I think that's what Google and Amazon are waiting for that to take off. It's going to happen very soon here,
That's
and they're setting themselves up for that.
That is so true. Like as you mentioned, when Amazon came up with those tons of smart devices, I was amazed at the price point these devices are coming out at. Because
Hmm.
the Amazon, I forgot what was their direct HomePod competitor's name, but whatever it is, Eco Max, something like that,
Yeah, yeah, Echo, I think, yeah.
right? That Echo device was priced half of what a HomePod is at. This
Hmm.
basically means that what is Amazon focusing right now? They're just focusing on getting as many Alexa devices in as many homes as possible. Once they are there, people are gonna surround themselves around Alexa. People are gonna have everything around Alexa. They're gonna buy Audible books. They're gonna buy from Whole Foods and everything. So Amazon
Yeah,
is having a really good strategy right now that get this out there in as many homes as possible because once this is over there, that's where we'll grow from.
oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, yeah, Amazon I think is definitely in the front runner for that. Um, Google's relying more on the third parties that hopefully they can get their products out and then be at the center of it. And then Apple really has to improve on Siri because right now it's nowhere near Alexa, and like that's the biggest limitation right now I think for Apple.
Right.
Is Siri not being as good as Alexa or Google Assistant, and then oh, there you go. uh, but I think once they start investing money in that, then maybe they could have their own platform. But right now, it seems like Google and Alexa are the only ones there.
Right. I think Siri is listening to you that you are not liking Siri.
Yeah, well, uh, it's a good thing. I think they just like they recently had that whole privacy thing where Siri was you know, people Siri, some of the Siri stuff was going back to Apple, and they weren't. It wasn't like an opt-in. So recently, in their latest iOS, they changed that. But I mean, that's a big issue as well with the whole home thing. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see from that perspective as well. How the data privacy for each company, how their policies are, because I know Google uses a lot of data in order to improve their services, but how are they going to address that privacy concern?
Google is playing a really smart move over here. Google knows what happens. Google knows what happened with one of the other competitor, kind of Facebook, and Google
Mm-hmm.
is putting it out there clearly. In If you watch the entire Google I/O, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, clearly states that hey, it's all the data that we collect that helps us create our services better, to help us make our services better. And
Yeah.
this is what we do. This is what we do. We understand that what who you are as a person, what would you like, so that we don't offer you something that you might not like. So I think they're playing a really smart move. If you go on Google ads section, or I forgot Google settings section, somewhere they have a clear video where they mention all the different kinds of data that they collect and how it really helps you. It really helps them make your life better using their products. Like how Google Maps, it tracks all your location to tell you that, hey, what is the traffic in this particular region? And
Yeah.
I really like how they're doing this. They also have a feature where you can turn it off. You can turn off ad personalization. You can opt out of it. That is really good. And Google is playing really smart over here. So we should really not worry about Google at this point. I think at least for the ad personalization thing. But then when we think about all the other aspect that what Google is doing with Google China, which is being criticized a lot, that Google has opened a research wing in China, which
Yeah.
is not directly supporting the US government, because obviously maybe it's just a hypothetical situation that somewhere in China gets access to all their data and they use it against US. This is just all hypothetical, but still it might happen. So this is
Mm-hmm.
where Google should take care. Google should be really cautious about.
Yeah, I think data transparency, that's one of the biggest thing companies are emphasizing right now. And I think actually during the Pixel event and during the Apple event, both of them went, you know, every moment they got, they talked about how your data is yours, and what they're doing for data privacy, um, and how the machine learning and stuff, instead of being in the cloud, they're actually trying to do that on the device itself. And that way they don't necessarily have to, or at least some of the machine learning is on the device itself, so that way they don't have to necessarily upload the data to the cloud and to their services.
Right.
It's already inbuilt software inside the phone or whatever. So I think, yeah, that's going to be define a lot of companies. And it's what I think that's also one of the reasons why Facebook rebranded itself recently. Um, like, because especially recently, they've been getting a lot of negative PR around that with the whole Cambridge Analytica stuff and just in general. And so people, the iconic Facebook logo, the Facebook blue logo, where before it stood for, connecting with your friends, and just being a social network, it sort of spinning around and becoming a negative connotation. And I think Facebook decided to get on the other side of that and just start rebranding itself.
Right.
But yeah, no, so data privacy and data transparency is definitely going to be the defining factor for a lot of companies going forward. And Google's in this. So the reason why Apple can, I have an article on this actually, but
Okay.
the reason why Apple can keep saying that, okay, yeah, we don't do any of this, we don't mine your data and stuff like that, is because they rely on products, at least right now.
Exactly.
right? They sell you a product.
Exactly.
While Google sells you software, which relies solely on that. Like, yes, they have Pixel, but that isn't their main revenue source. It's their software that's the main revenue source.
Right.
So they need that data in order to give that software. So what is Google doing to address that? They're offering services like Google Photos for free. Like for me, I have all of my photos on Google Photos with because they give you unlimited high quality storage, which of course it's not the full quality, but that's a compromise I'm willing to make. But I guarantee you that they're doing machine learning on that, or they're taking the data from those photos and using it to improve their services, and that's the cost I'm willing to give for that free unlimited storage. So it's interesting. It's interesting like that because Apple's saying you pay the premium with us, but they're playing the game that you pay the premium for our products, but then you know that data is just with you. It's not coming to us.
Right.
On paper at least. Their marketing says that, of course. There could be something else in the background, but that's all obviously all hypothetical.
The point you raised is really valid because with Apple services, as Apple services come into picture, they become bigger. What is Apple going to do? Apple is trying to go the Netflix path. That hey, what are those shows? What are those genres that people really enjoy? Let me capitalize on that.
Yep.
If you have seen the latest Netflix originals, you will see a very common trend in them, like Bird Box. There is the Never Ending movie, something like that. And then recently I saw Tall Grass, something like that. And all these movies have a really common genre, which is the fact that it builds the climax and then suddenly drops it with an unexpected ending, which is, I don't know actually how to explain this because that sounds very common, that sounds general. But yeah, it has a really weird way of making movies now. Like Bird Box, they don't even explain you what happened. They just tell you there is this weird creature out there that if you see, you will die. That's it. You don't know why this is happening.
Yeah.
There's another movie called Fractured, right? Fractured. So crazy. Like they are making these crazy movies right now with like constant twists. Why? Because they understood using all their algorithms that this is what people really like. Let's prioritize this.
Huh? No, that's yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they start balancing those services out. And I know, one of the reasons some Android people started moving towards iPhone, at least some that I know, and I guarantee it's probably somewhat of a trend as well, is because Android historically hasn't had a good track record when it comes to data privacy, and of course Google is trying to change that with their latest version of Android, but Apple has had that track record, especially with everything they're doing right now on iOS 13. So, like, it's to the point whenever I open up an application now, it says, can this app use Bluetooth? Can this app use your microphone? Can this app only track your location while the app is open, or can it track it so you have complete with iOS right now, you have complete what do you call it? Control over what the app can see from your data point of view. And I know with what do you call it? Recently in the last WWDC, Apple talked about how they're starting to sign in with Apple. So every app in the App Store has to have sign in with Apple, and they have a lot of features with privacy in mind. So if you want, you can make a temporary email as your ID. When you do like sign in with Facebook, it goes into Facebook. It takes your email address, and Facebook tells you, okay, this information is going to be passed to the app, right? So what Apple's doing is they're going one step above that too. That they're not going to pass that much information to the app, or they're going to be very explicit about it. And if you don't want to send that information, you don't have to. Unlike with Facebook, it's pretty much saying that we'll send you this information if you say yes, but there's no way around it. Well, Apple's trying to give you a way around it, that if you don't want to send that information, then you can still sign up for the app without that information. And they're going even one step above that, where they're they're generating emails, temporary emails, as your ID, and it'll forward you any emails from the company.
Wow.
So you don't even have to give your email to sign in with the application.
Okay. That is interesting. Like, I'm not an Apple user, so I
Yeah.
wasn't aware about that. I knew what sign in with Apple is going to be a game changer, but now that you're saying about that email thing, that is crazy. Like, Apple is really taking care that they don't get all your credentials.
Yeah, and that's why they're moving their strategy now, which is it's crazy because on one end they're moving their strategy for the whole privacy thing, but on the other hand they're starting their services. So how will both coincide with one another, right? It'll be interesting to see how do they approach that.
Right. This is where like Apple will, I definitely think Apple will face some antitrust issues because what is happening is now Apple is not just a platform, not just a product, but it is the service and it is
Yeah,
competing with other services. So being the or having the advantage of being the platform as well as service and making sure that its service get more users than the competitive service, that is going to be really difficult for Apple to face. Because just think about this. If Apple doesn't give your credentials to Spotify to do more research, but uses your credentials for Apple Music to increase your recommendation or modify recommendation, that is antitrust, that is anti competitive.
yeah. No, exactly. So they have to also follow by those rules, right?
Right.
If they're forcing all the third part, I mean, I think there's already going to be an issue that with the whole, if you want to publish an app on the App Store, you have to have sign in with Apple. I think that's already going to have some issues with some publishers, but they have to live up to that part of the deal too, or
Right.
else they're really going to have some issues. Um,
Definitely.
and but they're definitely taking they're taking that privacy approach. And that's one thing they're really stressing. So it's interesting to see honestly how many people decide to go Google's way, where they get a bunch of services for their data, or they get or Apple's way, where they have complete control, but they're paying a premium for that.
Right.
And I know Google's also shifting their strategy to be more privacy oriented because the consumer right now a lot of consumers are looking down at, but Google still can't go to the same degree as Apple can because Apple, at least right now, and that's the interesting part. Right now is just is main revenue sources comes from selling the actual product and hardware, um,
Right.
not necessarily from software like Google.
Yeah. Like when you say that, I can recall the Google acquisition of Fitbit. Google
Yeah,
Google's acquisition of Fitbit is a big thing for all the users because those users have the loyal users might be using Fitbit for like over 10 years now because it's a 12-year-old product now.
yeah,
They might be having all their sensitive data, their health information, their wellness data over there. And with Google's acquisition of hardware, it might also use their sensitive data to again enrich the advertising business. And that's where users are very scared, or that's where the users are, as we say, privy about that. Hey, what is going to happen over here? We don't want Google to do that because that's really sensitive data of mine. And Fitbit has been tracking that every single day. So that is crazy.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah,
yeah, like right over there, I remember there was a person who commented on my LinkedIn post and he
hmm
mentioned he went really deep into it and he was like, Prashant, this is crazy that Google says that they are not going to use Fitbit's data because what they can do is they can basically make anonymized segments and leverage that in some way or another. I cannot quote him exactly right now, but
yeah.
if you want to exactly read that, go and read my post, and there's a comment over there which talks about this, and that is crazy. Google can actually do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think so on one hand, somebody can see it as, Google entering the wearables game because right now they're not part of it. But on the other hand, that with all that data, that's a big issue. Um, and actually, it's so interesting to me that now that you brought it up, because so many Apple Watch users use the health app on Apple, including me. Like I have an Apple Watch, and
Okay.
it's just so like the stigma associated with both companies is just so much different, right? Like with the Apple Watch, it's tracking like it has a bunch of sensitive data, but Apple has made it very clear. and of course, like now this is where the trust thing comes, because if they break that trust with their consumers, they're going to be in a lot of problems. But at least right now, Apple claims that okay, that is only you. Apple has no access to that data at all.
Now that
So
you say that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I recall a really cool quote that I understood, that I read somewhere, and that really helps. It basically said that if you want to understand the business model of a company, understand where they make money from, which
yeah,
makes a lot of sense because there are so many companies right now, the big guys right now, who are involved in every single business and who, like, you don't even know what is the business model. But when you really come to the point of how they really make money, like how does Google makes money? AdWords,
yeah,
AdSense. So now you
yeah,
understand that the main source of income is not Google Cloud. It's not their Pixel phones. It's not all those Google minis in people's houses. It is revenue. It is ads. Sorry, it is ads.
yeah. It's not the hardware or the products they're selling. It's the services. It's the Google Ad services that they're selling to third parties.
Exactly. And I think that's the big distinction over here, that as you
Yeah,
talk about the image of these two companies doing the same thing, we know that where does Apple makes money? iPhones. Where does Google makes
yeah,
money? Ads. So obviously
yeah,
Google we should be cautious about.
yeah. No, that's exactly it, right? And but that's the thing. So, but that's why people are more precautious about Google. But that's what I brought up, that Apple is claiming that they have all this privacy, and I'm going to take their word for it, right? But if that were to get broken in the future, that's that they're going to be in serious problems, because I think if they break that consumer trust, it's gonna hurt them a lot.
Definitely. Devik, I love that we are talking about this because there are some things that you have opinions on, and there are some things that I thought in a completely different way. And now it makes so much sense because I'm not an Apple user. So this makes a lot of sense to me now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's one of the reasons, I wanted you to come on, is because, I really love products. I'm that person who watches all the live streams for different products, and I keep myself up to date. And, based on my conversations with you in the past and what I've seen from you on LinkedIn and stuff, it seemed like you were that type of person as well. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk with you about the different products.
Right, definitely. I would like to talk to you about TikTok. I really want to know your opinion about TikTok and the explosive growth TikTok has had in like last 3 years.
So, yeah, okay. First, let me preface this.
Okay,
I haven't actually used TikTok.
okay,
Uh, like obviously, I've heard of it. I know about it. I know what the platform is, but I haven't personally used it. I don't have it installed on my phone or anything.
okay.
And there's actually a reason for that as well, beyond just uh, beyond just I don't really want to. I'm not a big fan of the content. It's also because of the source that it's coming from. It's a Chinese social media company,
Right.
and I'm pretty wary about talking about the data. I go to a certain extent with my data, right? Like with Google Photos, I told you, I use their unlimited high quality storage, and I'm under the impression that they are using that data, but I'm okay with it, right? But when it comes to TikTok specifically, that's where it's too much for me, because uh, especially with all the scandals that the Chinese government's been involved in, especially related to data privacy. That's not something I want to partake in. But it's interesting to me, like you said, the explosive growth of TikTok is crazy, because so one of the recent controversies that happened, right, is in the NBA, Daryl Morey, the Houston Rockets general manager, he put out a tweet saying, "Stand with fight for Hong Kong, stand with Hong Kong," something along those lines. And the NBA just went through a whole 2 months struggle with China about that, because China was threatening to pull away their business operations if they didn't apologize for it. And recently, with I think with Activision Blizzard, they held a tournament. I think it was like a Hearthstone tournament, and the winner of that says stand with Hong Kong. Uh, and his prize money got taken away. And the people who interviewed the guy, who didn't know what he was going to say, they also got fired from Activision.
Wow.
So, like, with all of that, it's crazy to me because, like, people have now started talking about how much influence China has on American companies, which it does because of the market, right? And these two are big indications of that. But in this case, it's a Chinese homegrown company that's now taking over the whole world,
Right.
right? And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but like that's a legitimate big thing because the U.S. has always been the controlling influence of the world when it comes to more social aspects, right? Especially when it comes to social aspects. But this sort of marks a shift that, of course, a lot of TikTok content creators are from the U.S. and they're becoming big, but the platform is hosted from China or it's made from a Chinese company.
Right.
So it marks a shift because these Chinese companies already have such a big power in China, like Tencent and Alibaba. But now they're getting that power and influence outside of China as well.
Right.
So yeah, sorry, I went on for a while, but I like to hear your thoughts about TikTok. And what do you think?
Exactly what you said right over here, that it is crazy and it is impressive. Because
Yeah.
why it's impressive? Because in US we have this company, this big social network called Facebook. Sitting over there and constantly looking at the competition in the market. We know what happened with Snapchat. Facebook
Yeah.
not only just copied or ripped off the stories feature and built into WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, but also you now came up with Threads by Instagram, which is another app that is a complete knockoff of Snapchat. So
Okay.
Facebook is like, it has turned on that single laser reactor on Snapchat and it is trying to destroy it, like as Facebook does. And being Facebook, it is crazy to me that Facebook wasn't able to do anything with TikTok. And being Facebook, it wasn't able to level up as it did with Snapchat. And there are a lot of reasons over here. Number one, it's simply because TikTok is not a social media app, right? TikTok at the fundamental level is social entertainment.
Right.
You go over there, you watch these 15-minute clips, you are happy, you are not envious because of anybody's uh, achievements, or you're not envious because somebody is enjoying a vacation in Greece, or you're not envious because your girlfriend got married to somebody else, hypothetical situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So over there, people are going to have fun. They are going there to find creative things. They are going over there to do creative things. So it is a completely different social aspect, right? And Facebook took some time to adapt to it. So that's the number one aspect, that Facebook wasn't able to catch up. And that is impressive. Now,
So,
yeah, go.
sorry? Actually, talking about that, Facebook, I think just recently actually put out an app called
Yep.
Lasso,
Yep.
and that's a TikTok competitor. It's trying to do exactly the same thing as TikTok is doing, but it's made by Facebook. So exactly what you said about Snapchat, where they put Instagram stories and threads. I never heard about that before, but I don't doubt it that they did that to try to destroy Snapchat. They're trying to do that with Lasso now.
Right. And what I
But
think Lasso has got over here is the same strategy with Facebook Watch. Do you use Facebook Watch?
So Facebook Watch is interesting because I used to watch, when I'm on Facebook, let's be honest here, most people are watching memes, jokes, or like some funny videos or cooking video, like whatever, right? So when you click on one of those videos, you end up on Facebook Watch.
Right.
So from that perspective, I do use Facebook Watch, right? But from the perspective of actually going on the tab on Facebook, I don't do that.
Okay, perfect. So exactly, right? Facebook is trying to funnel you any way, anyhow, possibly to their Facebook Watch product over here, right? So what happened with Facebook Watch was the day it released, it already had a bunch of content. So what was happening over there? Facebook basically released Facebook Watch for its high power users and released a beta thing so that it can accumulate content, so that when people are over there for Facebook Watch, there are no crickets. They are real content, right?
Yep. Yep.
And exactly that is happening with Lasso or Lasso, whatever it is. They don't want to open up Lasso to people and be like, hey, this is another TikTok. It's just made by Facebook. It's the American version. Because nobody wants to go over there if TikTok has already ruled their life, right?
Yeah.
They want to
Yeah.
see real content over there. So this is what I believe Facebook is trying to do. They have released Lasso to specific content creators, and they are trying to maybe poach in TikTok content creators over here for money or something like that. They want
Yeah.
to accumulate more content and then launch it to the people. So that's the reason why somebody wrote in the comment section of my post that, hey, if that's the case, why isn't Facebook promoting it? I'm like, this is the reason why Facebook isn't promoting, because they want to promote at the right time.
Yeah. No, exactly. Actually, I think so. Sort of relating to that, with Twitch and Microsoft's new streaming service for gaming streaming. I mean, I don't watch a lot of streamers or anything, but I've heard about this, that Microsoft is poaching top game streamers from Twitch to go onto their streaming service platform.
Okay.
So I know like Ninja, who's a big Fortnite streamer and Twitch. He has a contract now with Microsoft to only stream on their service.
Wow.
And sort of like what you were saying with Lasso. So that's a strategy where you get content by established content creators on other platforms on your platform, and then you compete like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting what Facebook does. I think definitely, like you're saying, they're going to start promoting Lasso when they get that content on there, so people get hooked onto it. And just in general, I think what their marketing is also going to go around is that A, Facebook's a familiar platform that you know about, and B, I think they're going to focus on the China part about it, where, of course, they can't. I don't know if they're going to explicitly say this in marketing, but more of a subtle way of saying it, that do you really want to use TikTok or use US made application instead?
Right.
I think that's how Facebook is going to start addressing it in the future, but it will be interesting to see.
Definitely. And so basically, we started over here about the impressive growth of TikTok. First point was definitely Facebook, that Facebook wasn't able to see this competition. And number two was exactly what we started by. It is a Chinese brand. It is so difficult for a Chinese product to understand what the US people need, what the maybe Indian people, they know about India a lot because India and China share a lot of common platforms. But
Yep.
about US, completely different aspect. So for ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, to grow this product, to do a lot of acquisitions, like the biggest acquisition on Musically in US, to acquire Musically and then grow their audience and actually not only make a Chinese brand, but actually have a perception of a global brand was really impressive. That's what I think, because when you look at TikTok, you cannot understand, you cannot say that, hey, it's a Chinese thing. No, you'll never be able to say that, because they have made such a global brand right now, and they have presented themselves so well.
And that's the thing. So in China, because the government controls the economy, companies can get a big monopoly on different things, because the government has to approve the competition pretty much. And that's the interesting thing about it, because the companies in China, as big as the companies are here in the US or Canada or North America, right? It's also because of the way they've been able to make a play on the global scale as well.
Right.
And I was actually watching a video yesterday, and there's a ridiculous stat that 46% of revenue in China is made by Tencent, or like it's part of 46%.
Okay.
Like, and I don't know how accurate, but like it's not out of the question, because Tencent owns so much, and they're such a big part of Chinese life, and these companies in China have such a big monopoly and so many resources there, that if they can figure out the global market, which TikTok now symbolizes, like sky is the limit for them.
Definitely.
Which is obviously a good precedent for them, but it's also a dangerous precedent from this point of view, that once they start being the the influencer of the world, or they start influencing so much in the world. Now all of that's an authoritarian government, a communist authoritarian government in China. So how do you prevent that, right? Uh,
Definitely.
while still promoting competition, because in a capitalist environment you can't just shut it down like you can over there,
Right.
right?
While you see
So
that stat, I'm just wondering if Tencent makes 46% of the revenue or the business, what would Alibaba make? Because Alibaba is huge as well.
yeah,
If we think that Alibaba makes 30%, then who are those remaining people? Like the remaining entire China only makes less than 25%. Wow.
and that's the competition thing, right? Like I said, the companies, because the government has that control over the economy. So over here, it's a free market in the U.S. So if you want to make a company, you make the most competitive product, and you sell that to consumers, and consumers decide who pretty much lives and dies. But over there, it's not the consumers that decide as much as the government.
Right.
So if you want to make a competitive product, uh, you have to go through the government, and the government will probably shut you down because Tencent and Alibaba probably already have a lot of different connections in the government,
Right.
and they already have deals in place. So why would the government ever have to? Why would they want to make deals with other companies when they already have deals with the companies that are existing right now?
Right. Definitely. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And that's why, for a lot of the U.S. companies, because they made those deals with the Chinese government, that's what's so scary for them, like with Activision Blizzard or the NBA or whoever, because they have those deals. They have pretty much a monopoly on the Chinese market because they've already made those deals with China.
Right.
Um, because that's what the government enables you to do. It pretty much allows you to have a monopoly of your product if you're able to make a deal with the government. And if they lose that, that's a billion people, a billion, 1.5 billion, I think now.
Right.
Like that's that's a lot of prospective users, because I think China now has the largest amount of smartphone users in the world as well. So, like that's a lot of people to lose out on.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's the reason why I was again watching a video last night about how Tim Cook has built a really good relationship with Donald Trump. And the entire video has this concept of how Tim Cook was always supporting Hillary Clinton, but when he found that Donald Trump is now the president, he kind of completely shifted, and now he's trying to play the game where he's trying to, on a personal level, he's trying to convince Trump specific about his problems. He's trying to let him know about his problems on a personal level, not like Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos, like how Donald Trump completely goes off to Jeff Bezos on Twitter that, hey, this man, we need to shut him down. This man, like when recently we had a Jedi contract, $10 billion for Pentagon. Who's going to be the cloud provider for Pentagon for $10 billion? It was called Jedi contract.
Yeah.
Donald Trump clearly went against Amazon. They were like, hey, if AWS gets this contract, they're going to be the biggest player and nobody's going to be able to, come close to them. So Amazon shouldn't be able to get this. Jeff Bezos shouldn't be able to get this. And you know how he has been criticizing Jeff Bezos, but he hasn't been doing that with Tim Cook, even though Tim
Oh
Cook
yeah.
was supporting Hillary Clinton. He,
I mean, he has a tweet saying, "I had a great conversation with Tim Apple."
right, Tim Apple.
So,
And he
yeah,
also
exactly.
changed his username to Tim Apple. That was funny.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I think, but just in general, it just makes sense from Tim Cook's point of view that political views aside, he has to, for the future of the company, he has to have that relationship with the president. But yeah, no, Jeff Bezos is taking more of a hardline approach, which is interesting because you would think Bezos would be on the other side more with Trump, and Tim Cook would be more of the person taking the highline approach. But yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's interesting for sure, and I think given that Donald Trump's a lot more open, like because Donald Trump's a billionaire and he's a businessman, I think he's a lot more open to letting businesses off the hook, especially U.S. businesses,
Right.
like giving them more tax breaks, giving them more, letting them get more power essentially in the market, right, and get more money ultimately. So I think that's one big reason why a lot of business people have had that relationship with them because they know they can leverage it to get some great things for their company. Now, of course, there's a lot of different issues with Donald Trump, but a lot of political leaders have also been using him for different things. But of course, that's a whole different conversation. So,
Definitely, yeah. I would like to talk to you about breaking up the big tech, which is the latest thing, the latest trend going on with our presidential election. What are your thoughts right now? Like with Elizabeth Warren coming out with breaking up with big tech, like always preaching that. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
yeah, I think so. I'm not going to say I'm completely up to date with that, but I know she was proposing having taxes on different electronic purchases and stuff, which I think makes sense, honestly. Like aside from the fact that I'm going into the software industry, so it's in my interest, or like the tech industry, so it's in my interest for these companies to have as much power as they can, so I can get higher salary. It does make sense from this point of view that you have all these American companies that are some of the biggest companies in the world, but because they're selling software, the government isn't getting any money from them.
Right.
Uh, it doesn't make sense that because those products aren't getting taxed, it's not going back into like because America or the U.S. gave them the resource in order to build the company, right? They have the whole consumer base and stuff, so it should be going back to taxpayers as well to some degree.
Right.
So I know, so taxing the software products. I know for me personally, it'll probably not be a good thing because that might mean my future salary in the future will be lower. But from an overall perspective, it does make sense, right? Um, yeah. Let's hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I was reading this big article. Do you know Ben Thompson?
I've heard of him, but I vaguely remember him.
So Ben Thompson has this blog called Strategy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Right.
that right, but he basically every single day he writes a really long form article about strategy, about products, about the new things happening in the industry. And
Hmm.
I really wanted to learn about breaking up big tech, but I just didn't want to learn from the political perspective because political perspective makes sense. But what about the technical perspective? Like I
Right.
am a nanotechnology engineer, so we definitely read a lot about how the patents that companies have are kind of like, destroying the competition. Like with all these patents piling up with these big companies, they have so much leverage over new guys. And like there is no like ground level right over here, so that got me
Hmm.
super interested that I want to learn this more from the technical perspective. And Ben Thompson laid this out very nicely, and where he said that hey, think about this, all the monopolies right now, or not only monopolies but all the big guys right now, let's say Apple, where does Apple makes most of its money from? iPhone, right? Now, if
Yeah.
you think about breaking up Apple into iPhone, Apple services, MacBooks, like if you try to break up into like, separate segments that, okay, this is the mobile division Apple, this is the laptop division Apple, this is the software division Apple. If you try to break this thing up, it's not going to work. That is going to fail. That is going to completely fail. Why? Because they don't have the same source of revenue as iPhone. Again, they don't
Right.
have the same source. They don't have the same vertical integration that gives that seamless experience. Again, they don't have the same volume that they might be able to reduce cost. Then they might not have the same distribution that they might achieve that scale, right? So there
Right.
are so
Yeah.
many things from the technical perspective that doesn't make sense. So you have to have a really good breakup. It's like not breakup, but yeah, you have to break things really well. So if you think about
Yeah.
how Andrew Carnegie's entire oil uh, company was broken up, it was simple. It was simple to break that thing up. It was simple because just break up based on states. That okay, this I'm just giving an example. I don't know exactly how it was broken up, but this is what I understood. That hey, they basically broke up based on states. That okay, we your entire oil company is spread across maybe 30 states, so every single
Yeah.
state gets its own company. The
Okay.
oil company produces oil and it sells oil. It doesn't have any different revenue streams, right?
Hmm.
using era that, hey, there are some Google, Google's hard, Google is trying to push that, but that's not where it gets most of its revenue from. It's get from ad revenue, right? So if we bring
Yeah.
up Google hardware business, it's going to completely die, and you are not going to have the
Yeah.
same good Pixel phones that you are. So you have to really think about all of these different things, and how some companies are taking advantage of that is Facebook rebranding. What is Facebook trying to do over here? Facebook is trying to make it nearly impossible for people to break up Facebook. Facebook owns WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, Workplace, Portal, and I think now they have this new Libra and Calibra thing. So
Yeah.
Facebook owns all of these, right? And what I have been reading like for last 6 months was that Facebook is trying to build, or Facebook is trying to bring together the infrastructure of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook all together. So they are trying to integrate the infrastructure so that in future it's going to be really difficult for people to break it up. It's not only about breaking it up, it's also because they want to improve the efficiency about this, about the experience between the apps and all of that. But that's the main point over here, right? And again, when we talk about rebranding, Facebook just rebranded to this new parent company, which is simply Facebook, all caps,
Yeah.
which is the parent company of all these products. But Facebook app still owns its own branding. So that is pretty cool. So now what they will have is Instagram will have Instagram by Facebook branding. WhatsApp will
Mhm.
have WhatsApp by Facebook branding. So now they want to show people that, hey, we are not just a collection of distinct apps. We are one organism which has separate separate areas of fulfilling the needs. Like Instagram is where you share photos. Facebook, where you meet, where you chat up with friends, where you look at their pictures, something like that.
Yeah.
WhatsApp, where you make groups with families and like do really intimate conversations over there. So now they are positioning themselves as not this one uh, conglomerate, or not this one big giant that has just gobbled up apps, but as
Mhm.
one good organism who is a good parent of every single need that people wants in social media.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. I think, yeah, like you said, I it's pretty interesting. So when the whole data privacy thing was happening in the past, I know some of my friends were like, "Oh, let's move away from Messenger. Let's go to WhatsApp." And I had to I had to tell them, like, I'm gonna have to break it to you that Facebook and WhatsApp and Messenger actually they even use the same backend actually
Right.
for their messaging. So I'm like, you do realize that Facebook owns WhatsApp, right? And they're like, oh, what? So definitely, like you said, they're making it more recognizable, and it's an interesting way for them to start rebranding themselves, and not just associate Facebook with the blue app, with the social media platform, but as a whole conglomerate.
Right.
And I think that was one of the biggest reasons they rebranded. And of course, like I said before, there's also there's some negative connotations to their brand as well that they're trying to get rid of. But yeah, no, I think that's definitely interesting. Like you said, I think honestly, one thing that was really interesting to me in the last couple of months was seeing how unaware some politicians are about how tech companies operate. And I'm saying from the perspective of, I know when Sundar Pichai went to Congress and Mark Zuckerberg went to Congress. Some of the if you look at the tapes online, they're all available online. Some of the questions these guys were asking were so straightforward. It was unbelievable to me that they didn't know, like, that they were having a hearing about a tech scandal and they didn't know these basic things about the company.
Right. You remember that congressman who just asked that, so how does Facebook makes money? And then Mark Zuckerberg is like, we sell ads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I will tell you one thing. Congress has done its homework. If you look at the recent Congress and Facebook testification, or whatever we say, when Mark Zuckerberg testified with Congress for the Libra product, which is the cryptocurrency, which is going to be the blockchain based cryptocurrency for everybody to transact.
Yeah.
They had pretty good questions. They had pretty good questions. They did the homework. They got some, I would say that might be a factor, but they got some young Congress people like AOC. You know how
Okay.
AOC created Mark Zuckerberg? That was crazy. That was the
Yeah.
best.
No,
So
exactly. That's what has to happen, right? Because
yeah,
you have all these power players like Facebook, Google, Apple. They have so many resources that you have to know if you're going to go at them exactly what you're going to go at them for.
right.
Uh,
That's
and
true.
if you're going to ask them basic questions about how do they make, it shouldn't be how do they make their money. It should be more of like what are the practices you have in the background to make that money, or just going into the more deep depths of it. And I think like you said, it's good that it's changing in the future, that the Congress hearings are becoming more relevant, because in that case, it's going to take if it continued that way, it would take so long for any issues that were actually there to be addressed, that
Right.
the powers just be left unchecked. Let's just say that.
Definitely. Definitely. By the way, what do you think on Libra if you have dug deep into it, if at all?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie for the viewers who are listening, and just in general, that I haven't actually heard of Libra. So uh, you said it's a cryptocurrency by Facebook.
Right. So they are basically coming up with this, just like Apple Pay, or
Okay.
I should say, not Apple Pay. Apple Pay is more from the card, right? So it's more
Yeah.
about like, Vimo. I think that's how you say it, Vimo.
Venmo.
Venmo, right? Venmo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like Venmo, where you have like uh, a bank account and you are transacting money across countries as well. Because just think about this. I told my dad that, hey, I will send you some money. And if I have to send him, it takes him 3 days to reach to his place or to reach his bank account.
Yeah.
But using Libra, they're trying to basically make this online. So within a second, it's all in your bank account. So that's going to be like a really good way to do it. And again, the reason why Facebook is the best person to do this, or Facebook is the best company to do this, is because of the platform, is because of the scale they have. They have
Hmm.
Facebook users everywhere, over here in India and China, not in China, I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
everywhere. So that is gonna make it really good for people, because now they are on Facebook. They don't have to install another app. They don't have to go through another transaction thing. Everything is through Facebook now, and Facebook
Yeah.
is leveraging that. They are capitalizing on that.
Yeah. No, for sure. So wait. So just to get some insight into it, is it so if you want to send money, for example, to your dad in this case, right? Does it convert your Canadian into Libra, which is a cryptocurrency, and then convert that into Indian rupees, or how does that work then? Or do you know?
Okay, I am not really sure about that.
Okay.
I think that Libra is a cryptocurrency, and it is kind of the currency that they are gonna have. What do we say? I forgot that word, but you know how initially when we had to make American dollar strong, when they had to make American dollar strong, they would have a lot of gold deposit.
Right.
So
Right.
similarly, they will have some cash deposit, and based on that, they will check the value, or the value of Libra. So it's gonna have some kind of like a third party currency style working or offering.
Yeah.
We have to still see. Like I think I still I don't know about it, how it will work with different international currencies, but
Yeah.
hopefully they will have some this kind of aspect to it.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, that's definitely really interesting. On a side note, actually, do you know Kick? On a
I
quick
know,
side note.
Kick. Yeah,
So Kick actually recently wanted to do their own cryptocurrency.
right. And they
Uh,
lost it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like in the U.S., that they there's something about a law that you have to put it through the Federal Reserve or something like that. If you want to sell in the U.S., and they didn't do that, so now their whole company they've called it quits. So I thought that was a pretty interesting side note when it comes to companies making cryptocurrency. But yeah, I think yeah, just in general, like Facebook is trying to be the one platform for any social interactions you have with people, right?
Right.
Aside from face to face, like anything online. So So this is just one way of doing that, right? Like right now, with Venmo, if I want to send money, I have to go into the Venmo app. I have to add them through their email, and then I send them money. But if Facebook's having their own platform for that, if I already have them as a friend, which most people have each other as friends on Facebook, it's just a standard at this point. It becomes a lot easier, and honestly, it would probably become the default platform for most people. And you already see that with the marketplace too, to some degree, with Facebook Marketplace. But if they can do the transactions through Facebook app as well, that's another aspect to it.
That is so true. That is so true. Like this is how everything is gonna come together for Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting play they're making. That I think they saw the downfall of Facebook as just a platform coming, because I think at this point, like, of course, Facebook is still Facebook, but to the degree it was beforehand, not as much. But then they started diversifying themselves, right? So with Instagram, WhatsApp, they're still being able to maintain control on social interactions. People don't realize that, but they have so many different assets everywhere, that even if you think you're not on Facebook, you're on Facebook. So yeah, it's
Got it.
interesting. All right, well, I think we'll probably call it here. But I really enjoyed talking with you today, Prashant. I hope you come in the future if you want to, and I hope you had a good time as well.
Perfect. I had a great time. I had a great time. I definitely think we should do this more.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely fun to talk. These are conversations that I have usually with my friends and stuff, but like just like a dinner or something like that. But it's fun to do on a podcast as well, and especially with someone who's as product oriented as me. So it's nice to have those different perspectives and hear the different opinions on different things.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me, Devik.
All right, thanks, Prashant.
Right. Take care.
All right, bye now.